And to begin, I have a very important question for you. Do you brush your teeth? I mean, really, like twice a day status. Okay, do your parents brush their teeth? What about your friends? Your lovers? What's the result? Probably most people you know brush their teeth. But how long ago do you think humans started brushing their teeth? 10,000 years ago, at the dawn of the Neolithic era, during the invention of agriculture? Maybe 4,000 years ago, around the time of the Greeks, or 2,000 years ago, during the time of Christ? Or how about 1,000 years ago? 500 years ago? What if it was only 100 years ago? Which may sound like a long time ago, but really it's just 2 generations, around the 1920s. Can you freaking believe that? Today, not brushing your teeth is like a sin. It's one of the most tried and true habits Westerners have, almost as deeply ingrained as flushing the toilet after a poo. And just 100 years ago, nobody brushed their teeth. You don't believe me? During the draft of World War I, so many recruits had rotting teeth that the US government was concerned that, and basically labeled tooth decay as a national security risk. Understanding why we brush our teeth is understanding communication. Because one man, Claude C. Hopkins, one of the most famous advertisers of all time and all but forgotten today, is 100% to blame. So what did Hopkins do that was so brilliant? As a challenge to himself, he took a failing product, Pepsodent, which almost nobody would use because it was a toothpaste and nobody brushed their teeth, and created one of the most effective advertising campaigns of all time to establish a cue reward pattern that was so addicting that now, 100 years later, almost the entire freaking world brushes their teeth. That's the power of communication. It's the power to influence not just others, but ourselves. And the success of Hopkins and so many other brilliant communicators, or people who can motivate themselves and others to great things, is not a mystery. It's an art, yes, but there are rules and a science behind communication. Effective expression, language patterns, and influence. You see, we communicate to create clarity, and clarity is power. If I asked you, who is the most influential man in American politics in the last 100 years? This man changed an entire generation of people and the future of our nation. Life is better for all people today because of him. During his time, there were segregated water fountains and bathrooms, Jim Crow laws. His influence directly led to racial equality throughout the entire United States and the evolution of moral consciousness throughout the world. Do you know who I'm thinking about yet? His birthday is a national holiday we celebrate on the 3rd Monday of January. This man had a dream and led 250,000 people in a march in front of the Lincoln Memorial buildings in one of the most iconic moments of our nation's history, which helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If you're thinking Martin Luther King Jr. by now, you're right. And what was this man's superpower? What was he known for? How did he touch and influence so many people? He was quite literally one of the best orators of all time. His speeches inspired millions of people, both black and white, to not only care about civil rights, but to do something about it. His words went absolutely viral, and this was years before the internet, Twitter, Facebook, or other social media. His power of communication, the clarity he created around the issues he fought for, from the words he used, and more importantly, from the messages he communicated, not just orally, but through action, changed the world, changed the entire world, and ushered in a new era of peace. Now, if our communication can help and heal the world and our relationships, it can also destroy them. Yeah, there are people with selfish intentions who are masters at communication that use it to harm and not to help, but they're actually a very rare exception, because the problem is most people don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to say what they mean or mean what they say, and this creates problems which should never really have existed in the first place, either petty conflicts or literally mass hysteria. Understanding that what you hear is what I mean is the key to improving the quality of all your relationships. Understanding that what you hear is what I mean is the key. Now, we'll give that a second to click in a bit, because you see, I had a girlfriend once who used to describe the things she liked with the word nice. And so nice when she really liked something. She obviously didn't have the same fifth grade teacher as I had, because I'd been so drilled at an early age that nice was a graveyard word that I could only use it as a euphemism for, wow, that kind of sucks, but I don't want to tell you that. And she used it all the freaking time. Now, what did this do to our relationship? Quick, was it good or bad? If you guess bad, you're right. She dropped nice like a nuclear bomb on any moment, and that grew into a tiny ripple, and then that grew into a full-fledged chain reaction, leading our skin to flip as repellent as two sides of a magnet that don't want to touch. And it would happen so fast, neither of us could even laugh at how silly the cause was. Nice. Nice, just a freaking word. She thought that she was being loving, and I heard nails scratching against a chalkboard. You see, when I say green, what do you see? Do you think you and I are seeing the same green? Now, is that a problem? Well, it is when you're decorating a house, and you may think right now, but I'm not decorating a house. And you're wrong. Every communication is a comment or a request, and we don't think about this until we hit a snag and stop hearing each other, or more specifically, until someone fails to meet our needs and we encounter steadfast resistance. See, I've helped a lot of people with their relationships, and invariably, they always think that there's a problem, like a real problem there. For example, the other person is doing something that needs to be fixed, or that there's something wrong with the other person. It's usually the other person. When what I almost always see is that there's a massive failure to communicate, which cycles into a destructive tit-for-tat syndrome that would make John Nash cry. If you want to see how quickly failure to communicate can catalyze into a problem, like a real problem that isn't real because it's based on this failure to communicate, go jump into an Uber, and when your driver starts talking to you, respond back in complete non sequiturs. He says something like, "How are you today?" And you say, "Did you check the tire pressure on your car last night?" It won't take very long. Trust me, something will blossom. And the big joke here is that most of the time, people in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, family relationship, a loving or sexual relationship, want the same thing. They want to create win-wins to get their needs met and also meet your needs. Unless, of course, they're a complete narcissist, in which case it's a longer discussion. But isn't that a relief? Isn't it such a relief to know that most people want to help us get our needs met too, so long as their own needs are met? And met first. Notice the key word there. First. That's the secret to getting what you want. You'll get more of what you want when you learn to start helping other people get what they want first. But we're all guilty of this and not doing this, right? Wanting our needs met first. So instead of trying to communicate, we try to be understood. Like when a mistake is made, and instead of being loving, we try to convince the other person why we weren't wrong. And how well does that work towards making anything right? It doesn't. Get this right now. It's important. You can either be right or in love. You can't have both. If you want both, in the words of Pat Allen, you're a narcissist. Because you think that you being right is being loving, but it's not, it won't be, it never will be. Sorry about that. Now, I'm not sharing this stuff with you because it's easy. I'm sharing it with you for you to take charge of your life and get what you want. And just like you're not going to catch a fish by expecting other people to catch a fish for you, you're going to have to learn this stuff and master it for yourself instead of waiting or relying on someone else to master it for you. Take this quote to heart. Things don't change, we change. Your entire life will change, not just personally, but the whole world around you. Your entire life will change if you just start doing now the things you figured other people would do later. Now, that's actually a really good one. Let me say it again. Your entire life will change if you just start doing now the things you figured other people would do later. In Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, he mentions the 5th habit as seek first to understand, then be understood, which is the foundation of creating a win-win. He tells a story about a man who came to see him, devastated about the relationship he had with his son. Mr. Covey, I've tried everything to help my son. I'm not sure what else I can do. I'm so upset about this. Maybe I should just give up. I don't understand him. He never listens to me. And Covey looks at him and says, You don't understand him. He never listens to me. And the man perks up and says, yes, that's it. I don't understand him. He never listens to me. And Covey says, okay, let's try this again. You don't understand your son because he never listens to you. And the man says again, this time a little bit more impatiently, Mr. Covey, that's what I've been trying to tell you. I don't understand him. He never listens to me. And you don't seem to be listening either, pal. And Covey says, well, I thought that in order to understand another person, you need to listen to them. Have you tried listening to him? And the man purses up and says, of course not. I already understand him. I know exactly what he would say. I was just like that at his age. The problem is that he's not listening to me. And you don't seem to understand either. What am I, living in a world of Michigas? And the dialogue is funny precisely because it's familiar. So many people's conversations are just collective monologues where two people project and pretend they understand each other, preparing their next point while they should be listening, without ever really caring to understand what's truly going on inside that other human being. Think about your most charged relationship, someone who you seem to always fight with. Chances are you're more interested in what you have to tell them instead of what they have to tell you. And how can we expect to have a positive relationship with someone who are not able to empathetically listen and understand before we expect them to understand us? See, people are obsessed with taking self-defense classes because they want to be able to protect themselves from physical violence. The martial arts industry alone accounts for $4 billion. And what are the chances that any one of these people is actually going to be physically attacked? Maybe close to zero, maybe more. It depends on where you live. But what about being psychologically or verbally attacked? That's close to 100%, maybe a week. And yet, how much time are you investing in learning how to diffuse conflict or violent communication? Chances are you're never going to need to be able to flip somebody over on their back and put them in a headlock. But conversational judo, that's something you could use daily, which wouldn't just protect you and the people you love, it would help heal the entire world. See, the meaning of our communication is the response we get. Mastering communication is being able to distinguish our own projection from another person so that we can clearly see ourselves and we can clearly see them. I truly believe that resolving miscommunication between people would resolve a significant majority of their problems, and maybe even the problems of the world, problems that are usually solved through artifice, divorce, violence, or abstention. I can't speak to this enough. It's a big mission of mine to help people clarify their communication. I think this is one of the easiest ways people could actively participate in improving the world and their own quality of life. And in all of this, we haven't even dove deep into language itself. Language is the lifeblood of the soul into which thoughts run and out of which they grow. Whether we think we can or think we can't, we're right. And just like seeing, hearing is believing. Like this joke. My great auntie went to the doctor. He said that she had a fissure in her uterus, and if she had a baby, it would be a miracle. So she went back to her husband and said, "You wouldn't believe it! I went to the doctor and he said, you have a fish in your uterus, and if you have a baby, it will be a mackerel." You can have a giant flea and a tiny elephant, and I'll still understand what you mean. Language is complicated and messy. And I'll never forget these wise words of language from one of my mentors of philosophy at USC, Dallas Willard. He was talking about love. And he said, and he had this thick Southern accent, you don't love chocolate cake. You just want to eat it. And I think that pretty much sums up how beautiful, sharp, imprecise, and necessary language is for communication. And I think that all just generally sums up the importance of this communication pillar. George Harrison once sang,